Good morning, everyone. Can someone tell me whether my voice is clear and is this screen clearly visible to all of you? I will explain nominal and real GDP. Don't worry. I'll take this at the end of the class. Okay. Just remind me once. So welcome everyone. Welcome to today's session. And today we will complete 12th and 13th January news, current affairs. Okay. And I've also classified all the news into relevant, important aspects that are usually asked in general awareness paper of RBI as well as in others also. So as you can see in this document that you guys will be getting, you'll be getting all the relevant news, economy, national, international, sports and other heads over there. Although we are providing this in the compilation, but I'll try to provide this in the daily current affairs also so that you can classify accordingly all the type of news that we will do. Okay? So let's start with the first news, which is about Reserve Bank of India's report on trend and progress of banking in India. Okay, so in this we will talk about there are few aspects in this report that is present in the news. And what are these aspects? One of the important aspects is related to RBI Ombudsman scheme. Ombudsman scheme, as all of you know, is related to complaints. Okay. That any customer can complain with respect to any banking services upon which they have faced difficulties. So they can directly contact to RBI Ombudsman and their issue will be resolved effective immediately. Okay. So this is the report with respect to number of complaints that has been continuing since the launch of this Reserve Bank of India Ombudsman scheme. Okay. So this report is telling that during COVID-19 or 2020 and 21 financial year, the complaints actually peaked, that the number of complaints actually peaked, and from there onwards the number of complaints has been continuously declining on account of improvement of services provided by the banks. So as you can see, annual complaints, the complaints are collected annually to RBI Ombudsman have gradually decreasing after hitting a peak of 2.36 lakh complaints in financial year 21. And this financial year is the COVID year, okay? That is April 2020 up to March 2021. So within that financial year, 2.36 lakh complaints were registered under RBI Ombudsman scheme related to banking services ranging from debit card issues, credit card issues, any deposit issue, or if you have faced any issue with respect to deposits and other things. Okay, so this was the peak. And what we are actually talking about peaks. So annually, if you mark the number of complaints, the RBI says in financial year 21, it has peaked and it is now continuously declining. This is what the news is all about. Okay. So since it's the peak, so you need to remember in financial year 21, how many complaints were there? So 2.36 lakh complaints. Okay. So those complaints were reduced 12.7% in financial year 23. That means the previous financial year, April 2022 to March 2023. Okay. And what we registered? 1.96 lakh. So this is the overall banking scenario. But if you focus on particularly public sector banks as well as private sector banks, what do you notice? So the important thing is that public sector banks registered a decline in complaints, whereas private sector bank recorded an increase. So you might be thinking that why private sector is recording an increase and why public sectors and how public sectors banks have become so efficient at their functioning. So you will realize once you understand the top 3 banks and their complaints, you will realize that public sector banks inherently were having a lot more complaints, okay, and they have reduced from there. But whereas private sector banks initially were having less complaints and there are some additional complaints, that's why this recorded an increase. And because their base was huge, so even if they reduced some of the complaints, still they were recording very higher than private banks. So for an example, you can see these are the top 3 banks with respect to complaints. State Bank of India at the top, then ICICI Bank Limited, and then HDFC Bank. So in State Bank of India, you can see 40,345 complaints were recorded by State Bank of India by itself. Then the next one is less than half of its complaint, 16,602, and HDFC recorded 14,979. Now, why do you think these 3 banks are only at the top of the list? Even in Reserve Bank of India's, systematically important banks, which among the 3 banks are there? What do you think? Which banks are under Reserve Bank of India's systematically important banks? Yes, correct. All 3 are there. Okay? All these 3 banks, SBI, ICICI, as well as HDFC, are under RBI's systematically important bank. So can you tell me, when does RBI systematically, RBI declares its systematically important banks? Does it every year, every quarter, every 2 years? What is the frequency with respect to declaration of which banks are there under systematically important banks? Don't know. It is every year actually. Okay? Every year it declares. So just a little bit of trivia. So we've seen that how it has recorded, overall complaints with respect to banking. We have seen financial year 21 and we have seen financial year 23. We have seen reduction in complaints. We have also seen top 3 banks with respect to number of complaints, SBI, ICICI and HDFC. Now let's understand some of the different aspects into it, that what exactly, if we want to see the whole public sector banks as a whole and private sector bank as a whole, we've only understood that public sector banks, although has recorded a decline, okay, but what about the total number of complaints? So as you can see, if you see the RBI's report, you can see the complaint again, public sector banks have decreased from 1.13 lakh in 21 to 1.02 lakh in 22-23, marking a reduction of 10%. Whereas private sector banks have observed a 7% growth from 68,000 to 73,000. Okay, but even if they have registered a growth in complaints, the private sector bank complaints are still below public sector banks. So this data is very much important for your upcoming RBI examination, whenever it will be, because anyway it's an RBI's report and this is mostly related to the banking sector. Even IBPS also, this report becomes crucial. So you have to observe the patterns too. Okay? While private sector has registered a growth, but all the complaints are still below number of complaints registered under public sector banks. Okay? Now we've seen that overall scenario, number of complaints, we've seen the banks who are at the top of the list, we've seen that also. But what about complaints in which kind of category? Okay, there are different kind of category. There are different kinds of banking services, starting from deposit, check, ATM, credit card, agent sales, and other aspects. Okay. So what is the top category under which the number of complaints are highest? So as you can see, complaints related to ATM, debit card, and credit card has increased from 36250 in 2017-18 to 1 lakh in 2020-21. So this was the peak year, and then it gradually decreased to 53,000 in 22-23. And what could be the crucial reason for decrease in number of complaints associated with ATM, debit card, and credit card increase? Can you tell me? What do you think? Why it suddenly dropped from 1 lakh to 53,000? Yes, correct. Very good. Because of UPI payments. Those, not even cash usage was, turned out to be low. Debit card usage declined, credit card usage, although it remains the same or increased. Okay, then we have this loans and advance section. So under this section, complaint increased from 4,926 in 2017 to 39,000. Okay, in 22-23. And then we have this section called deposit account section, and the complaints rose from 6,000 to 33,000 in 22-23. And as you can see, because this section, mobile banking and electronic banking, is right now at rise, the report says that complaints under this section is steadily growing each year, because it is right now at the mainstream. Everybody is using it. Okay, so these are the major highlights associated with report on trends on banking sector. Okay. See, main parameter, as you can see from the name itself, that it is a systematically important bank. Okay, that means failure of this bank will lead to, the financial system of India will fail also. So obviously that bank must have huge branches in India. Okay, huge deposits, huge correction with respect to the whole financial sector. All of these are various factors. Ki matlab, if one of these important banks fail, India's financial stability will be at stake. That is what the purpose of domestically, systematically important banks. Let's go to the next news. India-Japan fund to invest 400 crores in Mahindra last mile mobility. Okay, what is this fund? So this fund is managed by National Investment and Infrastructure Fund Limited, and the news says it will invest 400 crore in Mahindra Last Mile Mobility Limited. So in order to understand this news, we have to understand what exactly is National Investment and Infrastructure Fund is. Okay, and then we'll see what is India-Japan Fund and why exactly it is investing in this Mahindra Mobility. So we have this National Infrastructure Investment Limited. Okay, it is a sovereign wealth fund. It is registered with SEBI as a Category 2 alternate investment fund. So in one of the current affairs session, I've already explained what are the various different categories of alternate investment funds. Okay. So in Category 2 alternate investment fund, we've discussed that these fund houses utilizes complex algorithms or investment strategies to make returns for their investors. And what are the various companies that comes under it? Usually hedge funds, private equity firms. So for example, let's say Marcellus Investment in India, Edelweiss you must have known about. Okay, these are the companies which manages various type of funds. Okay, and they take money from public via mutual fund. Okay, and they invest in different instruments. So this is the core purpose of category 2 investment fund, alternative investment fund. And these funds are registered with SEBI. So National Infrastructure Investment Fund Limited company, it's also a sovereign wealth fund. And why sovereign? Because it has a government backing. Government is an anchor investor. What do you mean by anchor investor? The investor which has a credibility and which also provides huge amount of money. After seeing that, all retail investors and other investors think, okay, the government is funding this particular investment fund, so this fund must be somewhat safe and also must be promising. So this is the criteria of sovereign wealth fund. Okay. So this sovereign wealth fund has a specific purpose, providing long-term fund for infrastructure development projects. In India. Okay. So for that, it manages various type of funds. There are 5 type of funds. Master funds, fund of fund, and one of the important fund about which we will be talking about is India-Japan fund. So in October 2023, this Indian-Japan fund was launched with the backing of Government of India plus Japan, Bank of International Cooperation, JBIC. So this Government of India will provide 49% of the fund and JBIC will provide 51% of the fund. And this total fund has a corpus of $600 million. Okay, so this is old news. So when this fund was established, which will be managed by National Infrastructure Fund Limited, the company, okay, what exactly is the purpose of this fund? Whatever corpus that this fund will manage, this corpus will be utilized for infrastructure projects, especially in sustainable infrastructure or, green energy or something like that. All the projects related to, climate change, green energy, sustainable development. So one of the most important component under sustainable development or alternative fuels is electronic mobility, electronic vehicles. Okay. So now see the news. India-Japan fund managed by NIIF will invest 400 crores in Mahindra Last Mile Mobility Limited. This is the company which produces electronic vehicles. So now does this news make sense to everyone? Let's move on to the next news. Karnataka Bank open branch in Ayodhya. So how many of you are going to Ayodhya on 22 April? So I'm just joking. So with respect to this news, Karnataka Bank opened its 950th branch with a mini e-lobby at Ayodhya. Okay. So here, obviously, although it's news not that much important, but this concept of mini e-lobby is important. So that's why we put this news in the current affairs. So what do you mean by e-lobby? Does anyone have any idea? How many of you have visited bank branches? So just imagine if you enter the bank branch, okay? This is your gate, this is your lobby, and this is various bank employees working over here. Okay? And this is your lobby. And they're talking about that e-lobby is present here. E-lobby, that means in this lobby, there will be no human or no bank employee present over there. Only there will be machines. So one of the machine will be ATM machine, another machine will be checkbook printing machine, another machine will be, check deposit machine, and other different machines that are usually can be done by machines for your banking basic services. Okay, so this is the concept of e-lobby. A lobby in which there will be machines, whatever basic services that you need in order to, whenever you go to a particular bank that can be addressed by these machines, you can do so here. Fully automated, fully, very easy to do also, because it has various possibilities of languages also. Okay? Self-service. So this is the concept of e-lobby. So ये mini e-lobby is being developed in Karnataka Bank branch in Ayodhya. Next news, real-time Singapore remittances on UPI now will be allowed. So, this is a very, very important news with respect to internationalization of UPI as a payment methodology or international adoption of UPI. And this will not only help in cross-border transactions, but it will also help in case of, let's say, internationalization of rupee someday. But we should look at this at a very major milestone that we guys have achieved. Now think about that, now, and what exactly in this news is happening. Let's first understand this, that Indians can now receive remittances from Singapore directly into their bank account on real-time basis. That means if I am, utilizing this Singapore payment system and I want to send money to my family in India, I can directly do so, because the Singapore payment system, Pay Now, and the UPI, they both have been, connected, or you can say interoperable. So every application, third-party applications such as PhonePe, Google Pay, and other different types of Bheem, and even banking applications, UPI also, through all those applications that I do domestic transaction, I will be able to do international cross-border transactions also, because Pay Now of Singapore has been connected with UPI. Okay, so this is the crux of this news, and at any time I can do this payment. That's why they have said real-time Singapore remittances. And why I was saying that this news was important, think about the possibilities this news will do for us. Because right now remittances is there, but what about, big payments? Someday the interoperability will be in such a good, state that bulk deposit will also be a very much a reality will be there. Okay. So this is the result of one of the agreement that we've seen in the previous news, not in January, but most probably you must have seen that India or NPCI was in contact with Singapore payment services for an interoperability. So see, you can see the result right now. And apart from Singapore, there was one other country which was also NPCI was in discussion with regarding interoperability. Can you tell what was that country? दुबई तो सिटी है, कंट्री का नाम. यस, यूएई. ठीक है. Now let's move on to the next news. So India's outward FDI nosedived to $2.25 billion in December we're talking about. Okay. So India's outward foreign direct investment commitment fell sharply to $2.25 billion in December 23 compared to $4.12 billion in December 22. So almost 50% decline, almost, from the previous year. Okay, so, and this reduction was also visible from November month 2, in which we've seen $4 billion commitment of FDI from India to outside. So to understand this news, you have to understand the concept of outward FDI. FDI, if we see always in the domestic domain, we've seen कि अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं what example do you think with respect to FDI, you will say, okay, Tesla is coming into India with huge money in dollars, obviously, and they will set up a factory in India that will produce various Tesla Cybertruck as well as Tesla S-Class and other cars. So this is usually a normal meaning of FDI, or at least normal perception of FDI in India. But if I ask you that this is India, this is Infosys. Infosys is saying that our domestic market is saturated. Now let's go to some other market to generate more profit. So they go to US, they establish a new plant over there, give employment to US citizens, okay, and take profits to India. But the first initial amount that they will invest in US, this is what we call outward FDI. That is FDI from India to other country, outside Indian country. जो इंडिया से जा रहा है ना, इंडिया के अंदर नहीं आ रहा है. इंडियंस अगर बाहर इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, if Indians are investing outside in other countries, that is what we call outward FDI. And it's not like foreign portfolio investment. Foreign portfolio investment का example क्या? That this Marcellus investment or Edelweiss investment companies, if they just put some fund in US stock market, that we call it FPI, foreign portfolio investment. But when we talk about foreign direct investment, we are talking about very long-term investment only. ठीक है? कि set up करेंगे factory, we'll give employment to all US citizens and otherwise. So if Infosys decides to set up a plant in US, or if Tata decides to set up a new Jaguar plant in London or in England, okay? So that will be considered as outward FDI. But if Tesla comes to India, so for Indians, what it will be? It will be inward FDI. Is this clear to all of you? So what exactly is the news? The news says we have registered a decline in outward FDI. That means Indians are not investing as much as they were doing previously in the foreign countries. And why do you think this may be? Because they are mostly focusing on domestic economy only. Maybe they are trying to focus on providing employment here, or maybe they are thinking that outside market is not providing that much growth as compared to domestic market. So that's an economic decision that these companies are making. Yes, correct. Domestic growth, global slowdown. Let's move on to the next news, which is direct tax kitty crosses 80% of 2023-24 target. Kitty को ज़्यादा मत समझना कुछ. It's just a informal name for direct tax collection of various type of direct tax. ठीक है? So what does the news say? It says that the target of 2023-24 presented in budget with respect to direct taxes, the government is saying that 4/5 of that target has been achieved by January 10th. Okay. So the target was 18.23 lakh crore, as presented in the budget. And as you can see, by January 10th, 14.7 lakh crore net direct tax collection has been achieved. Okay. And it is a 19, almost 20% growth over the same period if you see previous year. So that means in January 10, 2023, that is if we see from January 10, 2023, we have registered a almost 20% growth in direct tax collection. And it mostly came from 26.11% rise in personal income tax flows. Okay? So, and then afterwards, in corporate income tax, it only grew by 8.32%. Okay? And it also have, given data with respect to gross collection, which is 17.18 lakh crore. But for income tax, net direct tax collection is important. Why? Because as you all know, the difference between gross and net tax collection. तो gross tax collection में क्या होता है? मान लो I have paid 1 lakh rupees taxes to the government. But later on, I have invested in PPF, ELSS and other also. So by deducing that, my tax liability comes out to be only 50,000. Okay, that means I have overpaid the taxes. And it's not like government after taking this money will not return you back. अब तो तुमने दे दिया, अब नहीं देंगे. ऐसे नहीं करती government. Government says that whatever your tax liability is, you will be only paying for that, and whatever deductions will be there, you will be refunded all that deduction. So at the end, after financial year, net tax collection of government will be 50,000. Or whatever that comes into their bank account, that tax collection is gross, and after reductions, exemptions and other incentives that government gives, after deducing that, we get net tax collection. Okay? So this is the broad difference. With respect to learning these figures, make sure to learn at least the whole annual figures. कि अब total budget target was 18.23 lakh crore, and RBI exam will be obviously after end of this financial year, that is after 31st March. So फिर annual data with respect to direct tax collection will also come, and that data will come under, let's say, budget also. So make sure you remember every data of budget. Budget data is very much important. Direct questions come. Okay? Let's move on to the next news, which is December retail inflation at 4-month high, and November index of industrial production dips at 8-month low. So this tells that if we look at the inflation from 4-month, we have registered in December increase in inflation. And when we talk about retail inflation, what metric we are talking about? Anyone? Yes, correct. CPI. CPI combined. Okay. So the value of CPI as per recent data come out to be 5.7%. Okay. Both of these data, retail inflation as well as index of industrial production, they have been released by National Statistical Organization. Okay. So as you can see, CPI came out to be 5.7%. And this data, can you tell me whether it is within the mandated target of inflation provided to Monetary Policy Committee or not? Yes, it is there. Okay, because the target is 2% to 6%, or you can say 4 plus minus 2%. Okay, and what are the exact aspects within the data that is visible? They are saying the positive development on the inflation front is lower core inflation. So how do we identify core inflation? If from retail inflation, or you can say headline inflation, if we remove food as well as fuel inflation, we get core inflation. And why do we reduce these things? Because they are the most volatile inflation. And the data suggests that core inflation is very low. Another important, headline inflation was lower than expected food inflation, okay, and softer than expected core inflation. The core inflation I've already explained to you. Core inflation, if we measure, it came out to be 48-month low of 3.9% in December. So what does this tell you? That overall जो strong inflation होते हैं basically, that core inflation is like that, it grows steadily and it continues to stay like that. It's not like it will change, but whenever it will change, it will stay like that. ठीक है? But food inflation is like कि in one month it is very high and in another month it will drop down again. Just like onion prices, when it can go up to 120, then it can also come up to 20 rupees per kg. Okay, so we have to focus on this core inflation having been low. It is an important metric to understand that overall broad, inflation in the economy is almost within the target. And this is with respect to, we are saying higher base effect. This is related to index of industrial production, which registered a 8-month low figure. So they are saying that industrial production, because it is registering a 8-month low figure, it is mostly due to high base effect. As all of you know, that when we measure, okay, it is measured by year-on-year basis. So if these three are the data with respect to industrial production. So from, let's say 21, 22 and 23. So from 21 to 22, you can see the growth rate is very high because the base of the previous year is low. But that is not the case in case of 23 to 22 because the base is already higher. If 23 we would have measured from 21, it would have been very higher growth, but we are measuring from 22. So that's why, because of high base, the growth rate is low. Overall production, although it's very high. Okay? So that is the reason associated with this low index of industrial production. The base year of IIP is 2011 and 12. And what about the base year of CPI combined? Can anyone tell? Yes, the same only. Okay. Next, Indian Overseas Bank hike rate on rupee retail term deposits. Okay. So this is Indian Overseas Bank has increased the interest rate on rupee retail term deposits, and term deposit, as all of you know, time period deposits. For example, FDs and other deposits that are FDs, RDs. So among all public sector banks, IOB offers the highest interest rate, close to 7.65%. And this is only provided to fresh term deposit and not the already existing term deposits. Next, SEBI tweak alternate investment fund investor onboarding rules. Okay. The alternate investment fund I've already explained. So there is this, an alternate investment fund company which manage various funds. These funds take money from various investors. Okay, invest this money into various instruments, either equity, debt, and other aspects. Okay, and the returns they generate from all these funds, they are provided to these investors: investor 1, investor 2, investor 3, depending upon the money of investors. So what exactly rules is provided by SEBI? SEBI says there are new rules with respect to these investors we are talking about. Okay, and these rules came under the mandatory target of this Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Okay. So under Prevention of Money Laundering Act, there needs to be a lot more scrutiny of these investors. So SEBI says that they have laid down the criteria for onboarding investors, whereby alternative investments are allowed to garner funds from any type of investor. So what is the responsibility? The fund manager must ensure that the investor is not listed in the sanction list of United Nations Security Council. It is like saying ki, if there is any terrorist, if that terrorist is, making a bank account or making a investment in this alternative investment fund, that terrorist must not be allowed. If that person is on the sanction list of UNSC, this fund manager must make sure that that investor is not, contributing funds to their investment funds. Also, the investor should not be a resident in a country identified by FATF as having strategic anti-money laundering or combating the functioning of terrorism deficiencies. Basically, example like Pakistan. If any resident is if any investor is a citizen of Pakistan who is having anti-money laundering deficiencies, that country is not doing anything with respect to terrorism as well as anti-money laundering. Okay, so that investor must not also be allowed to invest in India's alternate investment funds. And another condition, it says that if an investor who has been previously joined and then afterwards no longer meets above conditions, then Purana fund to jo aaya so aaya. But in case if he is not fulfilling these new conditions, then stop asking for funds from this investor. Debar it. It's like that. Okay? So these three are the basic conditions that SEBI has done with respect to alternative investment funds. Next, state-owned, that means Central Public Sector Enterprise Rural Electrification Company Limited has raised 3,500 crore rupees in largest yen bond. Okay, it's Japanese currency. Usually the money is, taken in context of dollar bonds or rupee bonds. Okay. That means bonds are issued in denomination of either rupee or dollar. This is usually we have seen in most of the news. But right now, this news says that we have issued a bond worth 3,500 crore in yen. Okay? And we have raised this money from Japan. And this money has been raised in 3 bonds having 5-year tenure, 5.25-year tenure, and 10-year tenure. And the yield this bond will give 1.76%, 1.79%, and 2.2% respectively. Okay? So through these 3 bonds denominated in yen, the government or this rural electrification company has raised this amount. And what exactly this amount is raised for? To finance eligible green projects in accordance with company's green finance framework. Okay? These bonds are also known as green bonds. Green bonds का simple concept है that the amount of money that is raised via these bonds will be utilized for implementation of green projects. Bas, that's it. Okay. Next, State Bank of India launches special fixed deposit scheme. So what is this fixed deposit scheme? The name is SBI Green Rupee Term Deposit. And whenever you see green rupee term deposit, okay, so you can see the amount of funds that SBI will get under this deposit scheme that will be mobilized to support environment friendly initiatives and projects. कि water conservation project हो गए, electronic vehicles project हो गए, है ना? For all those, all the funds that will come under this scheme will be utilized for green projects only. ठीक है? So, what are the various features of this scheme? So, as you can see, this scheme is open to resident individuals, non-individuals, as well as NRI customers too. So, these three are the tenures presented under this scheme. 1111 days, 177 days, 2222 days. Okay, it's almost 3 years, 4.8 and 6 years. And they will offer 10 basis point interest rate below the card rate. So what exactly is the card rate? So in normal case scenario, there are always various type of rates, benchmark rate that any banking company provides. A banking company in normal case or normal deposit scheme for 1111 days, let's say they have provided 6.5% card rate. कि green deposit अभी छोड़ो, normal deposit के लिए you will get 6.5% interest rate for this many days. Similarly, हर एक tenure के लिए there is this benchmark rate that the government, that this banking company provides for normal deposits. So what does this scheme say? That SGRTD will offer 10 basis point below the card rate. That means if for these many days the 6.5 interest rate is there for normal deposit, for this green deposit the interest rate will be 6.4%. 10 basis point kuch nahi hota, it's just 0.1%. So you can reduce it from the normal card rate. ठीक है? Premature withdrawal is allowed. Loan overdraft facility will also be available against the deposit, and TDS is applicable as per income tax rules. तो मतलब जो भी interest आएगा that is taxable only. It's not like, ठीक है? And then there is this special provision of senior citizens are eligible for additional interest rate over the applicable rate for the public. NRI senior citizens are not allowed, whereas normal NRIs are allowed. Normal NRI basically कि senior वाला जो benefit है that will not be provided for NRI citizens. Normal this minus 10 basis point will be eligible for NRIs also. Okay, so this is this broad scheme. Any confusion in this to anyone? ठीक है, चलो, let's move on to the next. So RBI slaps 2.38 crore fine on 4 entities. तो ये सारे फाइन याद कर लेना, especially whenever RBI put fines on any bank, usually just before the exam. ठीक है? तो 2-3 महीने पहले if there is any news regarding RBI putting fines on various type of banking activities, that is very important news because questions related to that usually have come in the previous examination general awareness paper. Okay? तो इसमें कुछ नहीं, बस basically आप amount याद कर लो that RBI has imposed 1.2 crore 1.2 crore on Dhanlakshmi Bank and 1 crore on Punjab and Sindh Bank for non-compliance with direction on loans and advances. ठीक है? RBI has also imposed penalty of 6 lakh on Shakti Finance for non-compliance with KYC directions and penalty of 29.6 lakh on ESAF Small Finance Bank for non-compliance with direction on customer service in banks. ठीक है? अब loan and advances and this KYC norms, जो basic norms are related to loans and advances, how these loans should be there and what KYC, while doing KYC, what things you need to do. अब इन्होंने एक दो चीज छोड़ दी होंगी compliances, so that's why they've penalized for that. ठीक है. Now let's move on to the next, which is, तो finance हो गया. अब national जल्दी जल्दी करेंगे because we have a lot of news to cover. So national news, Tata Power signs 70,000 crore MOU at Vibrant Gujarat Summit. So Tata Power is the single company that have done a MOU of this huge amount of 70,000 crore, and obviously this is for, you know, renewable energy projects in the state, renewable energy projects in the state of Gujarat. So what projects and what is the location of these projects? So as you can see, there will be 3 projects in Dhulera in Ahmedabad, Khavda in Kutch, and Banaskantha. These 3 locations will be having the projects of Tata Power. And if you can see this location, you will be able to much better remember all these things. So as you can see, Dhulera is located here, Khavda in Kutch, and Banaskantha. These 3 locations have been chosen for renewable energy projects by Tata Power. Okay? And also remember the amount, which is 70,000 crores. Then we have this Solar Energy Corporation of India. It has also signed MOUs with Gujarat Vikas Nigam for 500 megawatt of power based on solar thermal technology in Kutch, and additional 700 megawatt of solar PV project in Banaskantha district. I've already, shown you where this is. Then we have this panchayat level weather forecast will be provided soon. Indian Meteorological Department says right now we are providing city level, but from now on we will be providing panchayat level weather forecast also. And this will help especially which entities or which section of community the most. Can you tell which section of community will be benefiting from this weather forecast, especially at the panchayati level? Yes, correct. Agriculture. Very good. Agriculture as well as the farmers will be much more aware with respect to their crops. At least they can take care of their crops. Okay? So this IMD will also launch an initiative known as Har Har Mausam, Har Ghar Mausam. Okay? To mark the 150th anniversary of IMD. Next, most cities breathe better 5 years after NCAP launch. What exactly this NCAP is? National Clean Air Program. So this was launched in 2019 with the objective of reducing PM10 particles by up to 40% in various cities that were dealing with the pollution problem. And obviously the base year was 2018. The base year, जहां से आप चेक करोगे कि इस लेवल से हमको 40% रिड्यूस करना है. Okay. So this is the result of NCAP launch, which saying that after 5 years, most cities are breathing properly. That means 40% reduction target that was there in under NCAP has been achieved in various cities. Okay. So initial target was related to 131 cities, where we have to achieve 40% reduction in, PM10 levels. This you will see here also, that 131 cities by 26 from what they were in 2017. And as per the latest data provided by Respirer Living Sciences and Climate Trend, it shows 6 cities, Banaras, Agra, Kanpur, Meerut, Lucknow, and Jodhpur have already witnessed a 40% decline in PM 2.5 levels. Varanasi stands out as the sole city to achieve reduction in both indicators. average decrease of 72% in PM 2.5 and 69% reduction in PM 10 levels. तो PM is particulate matter. Basically वो छोटे छोटे particles होते हैं, है ना, that creates smog. तो depending upon the size, अगर 2.5 माइक्रोन का है, you know, microgram per cubic meter, and we have this PM10. तो इस PM10 का साइज थोड़ा बड़ा है पार्टिकल का, तो PM10 अगर चला गया फेफड़ों में तो दैट विल क्रिएट ह्यूज इश्यूज. So it's good that various cities have achieved these things. Okay, so in 2023, Silchar in Assam reported the lowest PM 2.5 level at 9.6 microgram per cubic meter, while Delhi recorded the highest at 102 microgram at cubic meter. ठीक है, तो see, this data is very much important because NCAP is a flagship scheme in context of air pollution, and sustainable development is a very important topic with respect to various examinations, be it NABARD, RBI as well as other examinations. And since this is a annual level, you know, result, so please focus on these important scheme or important names such as Silchar as well as Delhi as well as Banaras, who stand out as the sole city to achieve reduction in both indicators. ठीक है? So, what is the safe limit? Annual average safe limit as mentioned by CPCB is 30 microgram per cubic meter. Now let's move on to the next report, which is Swachh Sarvekshan Survey or Awards. So now at the top, as usual, Indore is there, but the top award has been jointly achieved by Surat as well as Indore as being the most cleanest city in India. ठीक है? The next best is Navi Mumbai. Again, Indore has been adjudged the cleanest city for the 7th time in a row. ठीक है? Then we have the list of top 10 cleanest cities with population of more than 1 lakh. Greater Visakhapatnam, Bhopal, Vijayawada, New Delhi, Tirupati, Greater Hyderabad and Pune. In terms of state ranking, Maharashtra came first, followed by MP and Chhattisgarh. In the categories of cities with a population of less than 1 lakh, Saswad and Lonavala and Patan in Chhattisgarh secured the top 3 spots. Okay? And the cantonment board, the cleanest is Maho Cantonment Board. Varanasi and Prayagraj in UP won the top 2 awards for cleanest Ganga towns. Chandigarh won the safest city for sanitation workers. तो इसमें एक focus, you know, this Swachh Sarvekshan survey is very important with respect to GA. तो इसमें कोई भी आप news miss नहीं कर सकते. Every important city you need to remember with respect to their categories also. अब ऐसा तो है नहीं कि केवल cleanest city पूछेंगे, that everybody knows. But they can always ask you that Indore has been adjudged the cleanest city for how many times? They can always ask you a little bit in detail, for example, what is the most cleanest cantonment board? So not only just cramming of these current affairs, you also understand that how do they ask questions. और उसके लिए PYQs are important. So always utilize PYQs, then try to focus on current affairs so that at least you have an idea that what things you need to focus upon. ठीक है? Then let's see the opposite case also. Madhyam Gram, Kalyani and Howrah, all cities in West Bengal have the dubious distinction of being placed at the bottom of the list. While the states at the end of the list were Rajasthan, Mizoram and Arunachal Pradesh. Next, the most important thing, that 2023 survey's theme was Waste to Wealth, and the next year theme is Reduce, Reuse and Recycle, RRR. ठीक है? Let's move on to the next news. The NDB, New Development Bank, to provide $500 million loan to Gujarat government. And this is for small Mukhyamantri Gram Sadak Yojana, okay, for road development. So can you tell me that this New Development Bank is a multilateral development bank associated with which organization, which international grouping? Yes, correct. BRICS. Okay, so this was established in 2015. Next case. So this is a case going on. Securities Appellate Tribunal rejects Axis Bank plea on invoking pledge shares. Okay. So what in this news, as all of you know, that this organization, okay, invested in some securities and they incurred, and how did they get funds? Okay, they were already having some shares of some company. They pledged these shares to ICICI Bank, Axis Bank. And in return, they get money. And they invested this money in various securities. अब इसमें हो गया लॉस. अब इस कंपनी के पास पैसा नहीं बचा, है ना? So this company has filed for bankruptcy. Now this lender is asking that please let me invoke these shares जो इन्होंने collateral दिया था. ठीक है, मेरे को ये shares बेचने दो so that I can recover my money. Let me sell these shares so that I can recover my money. But SEBI has not allowed, and so that this Axis Bank went to Security Appellate Tribunal, and even Securities Appellate Tribunal has declined this request. So SAT is not allowing Axis Bank to invoke these pledged shares. Okay, so this is the news. इसके अलावा और कुछ जरूरत नहीं है. At least the concept you understand what exactly is pledged shares and invoking. Okay, and rest, whenever the development will come with respect to this case, we'll discuss again. Again, South India leads the way in NPS enrollment, shows PFRDA data. Okay, so pension fund regulated data, annual data has come. So they are saying asset under management has reached 11 lakh crore as of 10 January, with southern region leading in NPS enrollment. Next, segment wise, NPS private sector total subscriber base surged to 51 lakh. Okay. Then we have asset under management, which increased to 0.53 lakh crore. Okay. Corporate subscriber increased to 18.83 lakh. So as you can see, the number of this private sectors, then we have this corporate subscribers. So this is the thing that you need to remember, that private sector is registering with the largest number of subscribers under NPS. Then we have Mumbai get closer to mainland via Atal Setu. So Prime Minister inaugurated country's longest sea bridge, Atal Bihari Vajpayee Savory Nava Seva Atal Setu. It is a 6-lane Mumbai Trans Harbour link which connects South Mumbai with satellite city of Navi Mumbai. ठीक है, अब इसका अगर आपको मैप देखना है तो you can see here. So as you can see, this is Mumbai. This will be the sea route that can connect Navi Mumbai. Previously, they have to come via this route. ऐसे आते थे. Navi Mumbai जाने के लिए, but at least now this lane is there and this will be beneficial for at least time saving and other aspects. Next, Karnataka government launches Yuva Nidhi scheme. Okay, so this is a financial assistance and training to educated unemployed youth of the state. See, always remember the metric, educated unemployed. This is a maximum of 2 years scheme. The government provides 3,000 per month to degree holders, 1,500 per month to diploma holders who were unable to get a job in the past 6 months and are not pursuing higher studies. Next, international news. South Korea Simtech to set up 1,250 crore unit for semiconductor ecosystem in Sanand near Ahmedabad. Okay. This company is the world's largest manufacturer of semiconductor substrate. Okay. So it's a very boost for India's semiconductor industry. We also have recently done an agreement with US also with respect to this. Microsoft beat Apple as world most valuable firm. Okay. So this is obviously related to market cap, number of shares and its what? Price in US market. Argentina to surpass Venezuela with 200% inflation crisis. ठीक है, तो अर्जेंटीना में इन्फ्लेशन वेनेजुएला से भी ज्यादा है. इट्स लाइक पार्ले जी जो 5 रुपए के मिलते थे, it is now costing you 15 rupees and more. SEC approved Bitcoin ETF in breakthrough for crypto. SEC, it's like जैसे इंडिया में सेबी है, वैसे यूएस में सिक्योरिटीज एंड एक्सचेंज कमीशन है. ओके, तो यूएस सिक्योरिटीज कमीशन हैव अलाउड Bitcoin ETF to be traded in the market. This will help the crypto market, okay, because crypto has been, let's say, discarded by almost every investor. But right now, because this Bitcoin ETF was launched, again there has been an interest with respect to Bitcoins too. Next, Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, first sovereign fund to set up base. So this is related to this Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit only. So the gift city has been received commitment from many foreign firms, with Abu Dhabi Investment Authority becoming the first sovereign fund to set up base here. It's like ki, that NIIF fund that we have studied at the start of this session. It's like NIIF fund is setting up its subsidiary or its office in some countries gift city. So similarly, Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, okay, that is the sovereign wealth fund, they will set up an office in or sovereign fund in gift city, India's gift city, through which they can invest in. अब इसमें benefit क्या है? Okay, so if Abu Dhabi or the UAE government wants to invest in any Indian projects, so the office is already in gift city. That office will make sure that whatever funds that is coming from UAE, that will go to in India only. Otherwise office नहीं होता तो बहुत सारे compliances होते हैं. There are various aspects that an office within the territory of another country always helps. With respect to appointments, so Dr. M.D. Patra has been reappointed as RBI Deputy Governor for a year. So inke extension has been continuing. This is the second time that the government has extended his tenure by a year. Next, Bala Subramaniam is the new independent director of HCL Tech. Okay. Days 12th January is the National Youth Day. Theme is Arise, Awake, Realize the Power You Hold. So this is, related to one of the quote of Swami Vivekananda. Okay. MOUs, mergers, acquisitions. Tata Consumer acquire Capital Food, Organic India. Reliance India Limited backed joint venture open its first data center in India. Okay, so this digital connection, a joint venture between Reliance Industries and Canada's Brookfield and US-based Digital Realty They have, set up their first data center in Ambattur, Chennai. Defense news, India conducts successful test flight of Akash NG missile. It's a surface to air missile. इस surface से missile दाग दी aeroplane में, ठीक है? Off the coast of Odisha, they have tested in a major boost to country's military prowess. ठीक है? Then in the science and technology, we have this US FDA, United States Drug Controller type organization, Food and Drug Administration. They have, in their early review of this anti-obesity drug, they are saying that this drug is not linked to societal thoughts. Some people were saying this drug is related to societal thoughts, but this FDA has, in its early review, says that this drug, which is anti-obesity drug, is not related to societal thoughts. So this is all for today. So with respect to nominal and current real GDP, so GDP, if I tell you, what do you understand by GDP? The value of final goods and services. So basically, let's say if this one bread you are producing in the country, okay, so quantity into price, okay. So one bread, and what is the price of bread right now? Let's say price of bread in 2022-23 is 100 rupees. So you will call your GDP as 100 rupees. 100 rupees GDP in 2023. That is GDP at current prices. The year in which you are asking, that means agar hum financial year 23-24 mein, and if I ask you what is the price of, let's say, this bread, and you say the current price, right now the price is 100 rupees. So that is your nominal GDP, the GDP at current prices. But real GDP is GDP at constant prices, or you can say base price. ठीक है? अब base, let's say we have assumed the base at 2021. ठीक है? तो in 2021 the price of bread was 50 rupees, and because of inflation the price has increased to 100 rupees after 2 years. Okay, so real GDP, if you calculate in 22-23, what will be your real GDP? Quantity into constant price or the base price. What was the base price? 50 rupees. 1 into 50 rupees 50 will your GDP. ठीक है? तो ये दो के difference. Then the usual question is, what was actually the need behind identifying this real GDP? मतलब जरूरत क्या पड़ी रियल जीडीपी निकालने की? नॉमिनली निकाल लेते, फर्क क्या पड़ रहा है? फर्क ये पड़ रहा है कि एज यू कैन सी इन 2021 द क्वांटिटी प्रोड्यूस्ड इन द कंट्री इज 1 और इधर भी 1. ठीक है? तो केवल प्राइस के इन्फ्लेशन से आपकी जीडीपी बढ़ रही है, क्वांटिटी आपकी इकोनॉमी में बढ़ नहीं रही है. ठीक है? Until or unless this bread becomes 2, you will not realize an increase in real GDP. ठीक है? अब it's like कि 2025 or 26 में we are still producing one bread and right now the price is 150 rupees. So you will say that our GDP is growing at very good percentage, but does it actually grow at the ground level? Because you are only producing one bread. ठीक है? अगर आपका प्राइस बढ़ रहा है, that means the demand is increasing, that's why inflation is there. तो you are only producing one bread for 3 people now. पहले तो चलो एक बंदा डिमांड कर रहा था, for that 50 was there, but right now 2 people were demanding, in 22-23, still you're producing only 1%. So real GDP tells you how much exactly is the growth that is there without change in price. उसने price को रख दिया constant and now he is just telling or just identifying how much quantity difference is being happening in the economy. ठीक है? Is this clear now? So thank you guys for joining. We'll meet in the next session and thank you for actively participating. Thank you.